Okay, this is a super easy tutorial on how to create a kick menu. So whenever we put a player's name in this little box and we click the kick button, it will boot them from the game. Now, this is a bit more of an advanced tutorial, so if you're not too confident but still want to learn, then keep watching this video. But we are going to be going over a few different concepts that I haven't gone over before, but I'll try to explain it the best I can as far as we go. So, this is actually a really simple menu. All you need is the kick button and a text box. So this is just a regular button that I've renamed kick button, and you can see that in both of these all I've got is some just extra UI elements just to make it look a bit nicer. It doesn't really do a lot, it's just for the aesthetic. Now, that's literally all we need. The rest of this is just decoration. Just as long as you have a screen UI and a frame, and then you have your kick button and your text box, you'll be absolutely fine. So, to start off with this, all we need to do is first go into our kick button, and we want to add a local script. Now, we're going to call this local script kick local. You don't have to, I just like doing it because it's easier. So we're going to delete the default print hello world, and first of all we need to fetch our button. So we're going to say local button equals script.parent. And then we also need our text box, which will be local text box equals script.parent.parent.textbox. Cool. So now we need to detect when they've actually pressed the button. So we're going to say button dot mouse button one click connect function. So once this button over here is clicked, then we're going to send whatever's in this code. So this is where we start getting into for loops, and they're a little more complicated, but they make sense eventually. I'm going to try explain it the best I can, but I'm just going to write it out and then I'll explain it after. So first of all, we're going to fetch for the data of every single one of our players in the game. So first of all, you want to do for I, comma, player in game, colon, get service, players, colon, get players, colon, get players, do. Now I'm just going to quickly explain this. So the I is an iteration and the player is the object that we're trying to get. So we are looping over I, trying to get the player. That's not going to make much sense. There's probably some easier videos out there that'll explain for loops a bit better, but I'm just trying to make this as short as possible. So what we're doing is we're potentially looping through game.getService players. So we're looping through our players folder and we're saying get players. So it returns a table full of players. So that'll be, if you have 3 players, it'll be player 1, player 2, player 3, or whatever their names are. That's what it returns basically. So we're saying for every player that is in get players, then we're going to do this. So now we need to check if the text box text actually matches with a player's name who's in the server. So we're going to say if textbox.text is equal to player.name, then, so this is saying if textbox.text, so if this text right here that we've put in is equal to a player who is in the server, so player we defined up here, then we'll just do a little print statement, and we'll say print player found. Okay, so now once we put our name in and click kick, it won't actually kick anyone, but it will just say that we found the player. So now we need to add something called a remote event. Now, it's a lot more simple than you think. All it really is just the client telling the server that we need to do something, and we're passing on a little bit of information so that it understands. So what we need to do is we're going to go up to replicated storage up here. We're going to click the little white plus, and we're going to add a remote event. We're going to call that event, what do we call it? We're going to call it kick player event. Okay, so that's all good, but now we need to go back into our local script, and we're going to find our remote event. So we're going to say local remote event equals game colon get service replicated storage colon wait for child kick player event. Now if you're confused on what wait for child means, it really just means it's going to wait for whatever's in replicated storage to load, then it's going to load kick player event. So this script won't run until this is loaded. You don't want to use it too often because it can throttle your game and it'll cause lag and stuff, but for stuff like remote events, you always want to use it. Okay, so now we need to send our information to the server because you can't kick someone on the client. If I was to do that, it would kick them for me, but for everyone else, they'd be still in the game and it would be weird and it wouldn't work. So we need to say remote event : fire server. So what this does is it connects the remote event to the server, and so basically we're communicating our client information to the server. So then we just need to pass in a little parameter. We're going to pass in player. So we're passing in our player object that we found. So if we found our player, we're going to send their name to the server. Okay? And let's also put in a little else statement just in case something goes wrong. So if the text box text isn't matching a player name, we're just going to say textbox.text equals not a valid player. So we understand that we haven't found anyone. Now, okay, well the next thing is we need to get this off the server. We need to actually make a script that's going to kick the player that we want to kick. So go into server script service and we're going to add a script. And we're just going to call this kick server. Delete the default text and we're going to need to get our event. So we'll say local event equals game get service replicated storage wait for child kick player event. The exact same thing that we did earlier. So then we're going to say event.onServerEvent connect function, and we're going to pass through our argument that we previously had, which is player, and we're going to say player:kick. Now you can leave it at that. However, if you want them to receive a little message that tells them why they've been kicked, then you can put it in here. So I'm just going to put you have been disconnected. So what this does is we specified our event. So our event is the kick player event. Once the event has been fired and it detects it, so we're firing it here, and then once it's been fired, it's going to connect to the server, and we're using our player parameter that we already gave through here. It doesn't matter about the different case, by the way, don't worry about that, because we're just changing it throughout here and it doesn't really matter. So then once we connect the player, we're going to kick the player, and with optionally our different message. So now we can test it. I'm just going to go ahead and hit play. I'm just going to test it on myself. So another thing to remember is the fact that there are display names and usernames. So my actual username, this is my account name, this is the name you want to target. When it has an @ next to it, this is their actual username. Do not put in their display name because it won't work. See, if I put in Mordacity, not a valid player because it's a display name. We want the player object name. So my name is RGB. So if I click kick, server kick message, you have been disconnected. Now because we're in Roblox Studio, nothing actually pops up and says that you've been kicked. But if we were to publish this game and actually load into it and then try this out, it would come up with you've been disconnected and all the other little things. And as you can see, you can hear me, I'm jumping, I'm pressing stuff, and I'm just frozen in time. And if we actually look on the server view, I'm not even there. I'm not in the player tab because I've been kicked. So yeah, that works. But what if we want to make it available only to a specific person? Because obviously you wouldn't want a kick menu being able to be used by literally anyone on the server because you'd have no players because everyone would be kicked. That's really, really simple to do. So all we're going to do is we're going to go onto our local script again, and we're just going to go down a few lines, and we're going to say local player equals game.players.local player. Now, the next thing we want to do is we need to go into our button function, and we're going to say if player.name is equal to, and then this is where you're going to put your name. So my name is RGB. Do not put your display name, remember. You have to do your account name, otherwise it won't work. It's going to drop down like this, so we're going to just cut all that, put it in there, and there we go. So now it will check beforehand. Once we click the button, it'll say, okay, is your name this name provided? And if so, then we're going to run it. If not, it's not going to run. And we can actually check that. We put a little else statement and we say print, you do not have sufficient permission. So if this video was helpful to you, please make sure to like and subscribe. If you have any problems with it, just leave them in the comments and I'll try and answer as best I can.